Welcome to the Gifted Woman podcast with your host, Muenz. This is the place where you can come into full alignment with who you are without a mask. This is the place to discover what your unique gifts are. So let's go. Okay, so we have Carolin Hauser, and let me do a quick little intro into this German-trained naturopathic doctor, humanistic psychotherapist, and family constellations facilitator. She is also the author of the award-winning book, Blossom, Your 7 Steps to Sexual Healing and Creatrix of the Pleasure IQ and the Bliss Codes. I can't wait to dive in. Carolin is an internationally recognized speaker and teacher on the subjects of spirituality, emotional healing, bliss bonding, we got to dive in there, and all things sacred union love. She combines her knowledge about energetic healing and conscious co-creation to help spiritual women go from single to being in sacred union so they can feel whole and fully expressed in life and have their happily ever after, because who does not want that? So I want to hear first a little bit about the bliss codes, because that feels like it's activating something. But if you'd like to start somewhere else, or do you want to start with just the bliss codes and telling us a little bit about what that means and how you created that name and that where it came from?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I'll start by saying relationship used to be a struggle for me. I'm one of those people who's very empathic and falls in love very easily. And I came to this earth thinking it was going to be easy, and I fell in love with everybody under the sun, basically. So people can probably relate, you know.
Yes.
And I had to go through all kinds of relationships to finally end up, in a good one and a healthy one. And so on that journey, because I really was somebody who would just not want to, I didn't want to give up on the dream. I didn't want to give up on believing that we could be harmonious and peaceful with each other. And on that journey, I came across a lot of things, but specifically, I came across a book called Cupid's Poison Arrow. And that book changed everything for me, because in that book, the woman that wrote that book was very similar to me. She just didn't want to give up on human uh, intimacy and love and wanting this to be like a paradise. And she had spent, I think, 16 years of her life researching ancient traditions, but also neuroscience and neurochemistry. And what she discovered is that we as human beings actually, and this will answer your question, I promise.
Getting good. I'm taking notes.
We as human beings have 2 programs for lovemaking. One that is a genetic program that keeps the species surviving. So it drives us to making babies and procreating, basically. So we can call it conventional sex or procreation-based sex. And that's usually all we know. The discovery that she made is that we have a second program for lovemaking that's for deeply bonding. I call that program your bliss codes. Like, they're codes in your body that we already have. We don't know this. So a lot of what we're going to talk about today has to do with sex, if that's okay.
Hell yeah. Bring it on, sister.
So basically, and the author's name is Marnia Robinson. She's in her 80s now. She's a good friend and mentor of mine. My mentor, my one and only mentor in this, basically, because she's the only one that, she's the one that really brought this knowledge back into our times. There were people trying to spread this knowledge all throughout history, but it kind of got shut down. She also got shut down by the porn industry, so she tries to just keep a very low profile. I, on the other hand, I'm not afraid of that, so I'm not keeping a low profile. That's why I'm openly talking about it. But essentially, what she discovered is that we have these 2 programs, and as long as we stay in the procreation-based program, our genes basically drive us to become restless with each other and find fault. And so we think all the behavioral stuff and all the triggers and all the stuff is because of communication problems and things in relationships. And what she found out, and what she can prove actually, is that it's really based on our biochemistry changing. Right? We all know that when we first meet, we have honeymoon glasses on,
Mm-hmm.
and then they wane over time. And so this bliss bonding bliss codes and bliss bonding goes together. Bliss bonding is the way to make love to keep the bliss codes active or activate them. When we know how to make love in this way, we eternally stay in love with each other and interested in each other, and in a harmonious, peaceful, easy state of being with each other, including communication. There's like, it's when you're in love, you don't have problems communicating. It's that, it's that easy in a sense, but
So true.
yeah.
So then when are you kind of saying that the only way to stay in the blissful state is through sex?
It's a different way of lovemaking, and it becomes a practice. It's a daily practice. So my understanding of sacred union, and this is what I'm living, is that the commitment in the relationship is actually to this practice of bliss bonding. So in my relationship, our vows are basically that we recognize that we're someone who wants to, each of us, we each want to be in a sacred union. We want it with each other, and we're committed to the practice. That's the only commitment we have in our relationship. But
Wow.
because we're committed to this practice, and it is a daily practice, we stay in this. It's not just during lovemaking, but you stay in a very in sync and connected way
How
in
do you
everyday
do
life.
that? I like how to stay in that state. And are there any days where that doesn't work?
It's a really good question, because when we have conventional sex, we have it based on a spark of dopamine. So we can connect conventional sex, procreation sex, with dopamine, and we
Mhm.
can connect bliss bonding. It's also called creatrix or bonding-based lovemaking, with oxytocin. Those are two different hormonal cocktails. And so when you learn and when you teach your brain to get hooked on oxytocin and off of the dopamine, then it becomes very different, because dopamine gets released with novelty. And so that's why after a while, it's very difficult to want to, even though you love the person, but you're like, oh, I'm just not feeling it. I'm not feeling the spark, because it relies on this novelty spark. Um, Oxytocin flows with pleasure in the moment. So it's really very much about retraining your brain and getting your brain hooked on the oxytocin. And when you do that, um, your body just naturally wants it all the time. Because
Wow.
so with the dopamine, you go on a roller coaster in a sense. Your the dopamine spike goes up, and then you plunge in your neurochemistry, and that's also when we start feeling restless or want more, or agitated.
Yeah.
That's the nature of dopamine. So a lot
So
of, yeah,
is
go ahead.
that what you do is you take people into how to get the oxytocin? Like, so your brain, how do you do that through brain retraining or like somatics or like what are the tools you're using?
Yes, some of it is, so it's not necessarily tools. We have these codes in our bodies, the bliss codes, right? The oxytocin programming, because um, our brain has two reward systems. One is for um, pursuing novelty, right? And that's the reward we get when we procreate. But we also have a reward system for deeply bonding. Otherwise, we wouldn't stay up late at night, do diapers, do all the stuff that babies require, right? So we do
Right.
get pleasure out of
Yeah.
bonding.
Hmm.
So in our brain, we deeply embedded in our brain, there is a reward system for bonding. And so it's more learning about how the brain works and learning what the bonding cues are. And then really so I also have to say, in our adult world, usually we don't get bonding cues, because when we get touch or when we get any kind of physical anything, it's always connected to sex.
Hmm.
And it usually registers, especially for women, it usually after a while registers as men just wanting something from us, and
Right.
not like they're giving something to us, right?
Yeah.
Um, the bonding system does not respond very positively to that, because when you just think of like a baby, right? When a baby cries and wants to be comforted, it has nothing to do with sex,
Yeah. And
right? So
that's
we
probably why we love giving to our children and
yes,
why there's a with our partner.
yes.
Yeah.
So part of it is like, men, to their defense, they do not get affection unless there's sex involved. When do you see a man just getting a hug or a kiss or a cuddle or whatever, right? It's not manly. So part of it is really like reprogramming our whole view on society, and then
Yes.
learning to, part of what makes this work is a schedule where it's very clear, okay, right now we're just cuddling for bonding. so that the brain can relax and really take
Yes.
in the bonding, right? The
Yes.
kissing and hugging and skin to skin.
Mm.
And then there's very clear time when it's lovemaking time and very clear time when it's just bonding time. And because of that, the bonding the bonding can register in the brain then, because physical connection is not always connected to sex. So that's a part of it. There's several parts of it, with that go
Yeah.
with it, but just to give you an idea.
So you're just saying that like one of the things that you can do, and probably if you would take this off on your own and then not know exactly like what you're doing, you're probably just guessing, but working with you, you're going to have a
Yes.
really laid out like this is what you do. But so the first thing to do is really to schedule the time when you are just connecting to connect, but it's not going to lead to anything. Is
I
that for
think
the
I
woman's
think that
safety? Like, because you know how women, like if my husband, I can tell, I'm like, no, you know?
yeah.
And so if it was, is that more for the woman's safety or for the man to also know? Like, because, they are machines.
They just want, and then they just try and so it's for both. It's Men never know when they're going to get one, and they're always trying to get some, right? Because they never know when they get some. So it's not a good place for them to be either. It's a very
Yeah.
disempowering place for them to be. So
Yeah.
it's really for both of our nervous systems. Their nervous system relaxes because they know exactly, when they're going to be lovemaking. And
Mhm.
our nervous system relaxes because we know that we're getting just cuddle time also.
Yeah.
And very surprisingly, men will find when they also get a lot of this just non-intercourse bonding time,
Yeah.
their sexual hunger goes away, and all of a sudden they start feeling more fulfilled. So, first step is really educating, because it will make no sense to anybody just saying, hey, you shouldn't have regular sex, you should do it differently. So
Yeah.
step one is really educating. Cupid's Poison Arrow is a great book. It's thick. It has a lot of, it's for nerds. My book's coming out next month. It's going to be much simpler, much easier read. Um, but anyways, educating yourself. And then there is, in Marnia's book, there is a 3-week program in the end on how to transition. My book has a transitioning schedule in it.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Wait, so how long, because you've been doing this for 26 years, right?
I have been doing constellation work for 26 years,
Wow.
helping people heal from trauma and stuff. Yeah. I came I
Okay.
came
She knows
across
what she's talking about.
Sagan.
You know what you're talking about.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so you and so like did you do that for 26 years helping people heal from trauma and then it kind of morphed into this really streamlined like wait a second, what I'm actually doing is this or what I'm finding my most spark in is this.
My In 2016, I thought I was with my person, my one person, and that marriage was falling apart, was
Yeah.
failing miserably, and I would have done anything. And I was applying everything that I knew, and it wouldn't help. And that's when I came across Cupid's Poison Arrow, and it just opened my eyes to the dopamine roller coaster that we were on. Um, Unfortunately, it didn't save my second marriage, but I just really stayed committed to what I had learned and started dating in a way where I'm like, okay, I like if someone wants to be with me, this is what I found and this is what I believe. And it took 5 years to then find the right person that was actually open,
Well, don't you
to
think that like so the second marriage ended, it's kind of like you did everything you possibly could and maybe they did to their own ability
yeah,
too.
yes,
But when you came out and you studied and you did the work, it's like it sounds like what you met is a match of someone who
yes,
also, yeah. So it's like
yes,
a new alignment.
exactly. Yeah.
And
Hmm.
so is that what you said that you're helping single women come into a like I already am thinking of friends that I'm like gonna
Yes.
send away
Yeah.
because there are a lot of single women out there who have higher standards
Yes.
and I feel like that's fantastic. Like don't lower the standards because it's been a while. Just like and I also love that you're teaching people don't chase the dopamine hit because it's not sustainable. What you really want is to induce some oxytocin into the energy field, it seems like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And do it pretty much right from the beginning, because it will also help you weed out the people that aren't able to bond, right? This has to do with deeply bonding. And if somebody has an avoidant or narcissistic, wound, you'll see very quickly that they're not up for, just cuddling with you and, doing the just bonding. And So it's a
Wow.
build
And
in
you're
safety.
not saying when those things come up, when those wounds come up, you're not saying stay with them and you can help them. You're saying not the right match, wait until you find the right match because you will.
Yeah, because you want somebody who is emotionally capable of bonding with you, right? That's
Yeah.
like that's the whole point to have, being in a sacred union. You want to have be able to be at one with somebody, or want to have be with a man who also wants to be at one with you and doesn't
Yes.
run away from the emotions and the feelings. And
Yeah. And you don't want to be the teacher in a relationship.
no, no,
Yeah. You want to be
yeah,
a co-mate
yeah,
or co-teacher, whatever.
yes,
So
co-creator.
co-creator, thank you. So when someone is like, I mean that because I know we're gonna have people that are hearing this and they're gonna
Yes,
go, well, what the hell do I start with? This sounds epic. Do you have any retreats coming up? I know you have your book coming out, and remind us of the title. And I mean, that's amazing. That must feel like like such a heart fulfilling calling to have that coming out next month. Like,
yes,
congratulations.
yeah, yeah. So the book's called Bliss Codes: How to Create and Sustain Sacred Union. I do have a free Facebook group. I have do-it-yourself kind of programs. I do readings. Usually when I start with somebody, I always start with tapping into who their sacred partner is, because that person is already here. And so we always start there, whether I work long-term with somebody or shorter term. I do just do once-off readings to clear anything that's in their way, to connect with the sacred partner and give them a really good description of who he is so that they know when they meet him.
Yes.
I have courses on bliss bonding. I have courses for couples. I've done tons of couples work also.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, the best way to connect with me is really a Facebook group, and then just take it from there. I do free readings in the Facebook group so people can get a taste of what I do.
And would you say that uh, speaking to your ideal human who you'd love to work with is someone who has been on the roller coaster
Mm-hmm.
and wants off?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
if somebody's spiritual and knows that they want something better, and that there's something better out there, and who has maybe been told that you're delusional and that you want this too much, and that what you want doesn't exist. It does exist. It absolutely does exist. And yes, it took me learning these tools and learning about my brain and getting up the dopamine to really, and for Tim, my partner too. Like, if we didn't have these practices, we would be doing the same thing that we did with everybody else in the past. Where it would be great in the beginning, and then the arguments would start, and then the power struggles and the fighting and the triggering, and so, yeah,
I'm seeing you help people who have been on that roller coaster, and it's probably something that's really familiar to their childhood.
yep,
Yeah. Ooh, I just
yeah,
got full body goosebumps. It's probably
yeah,
something familiar to their childhood, and they don't even know that another way exists.
yeah. I didn't know that there was a way where there wasn't any drama, where things were just peaceful and smooth and easy, you know.
Well, and what a gift to give to your children as well.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
I mean, that was a great impetus. I wanted to show them that it's possible. Right.
yeah, yeah, because they're going to just repeat the cycle
Yeah.
unless it changes and they go, wait a second, it's morphing into something different. And like kids are so intuitive, and what a great gift to give to them. I mean, like the ultimate gift.
Yeah.
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 Well, Carolyn, thank you so much. This is going to be epic. I cannot wait to see your book and read it and suggest it to so many people I know who are on the roller coaster and just want a more blissful life. So I love that title. This is going to be epic. Is there anything that you would just like to leave people with, kind of like leaving them into something that they can think after this episode is over, something for them to ponder on? Like, I can see you creating something where, like, imagine your life is like this, or is there anything like that you'd like to leave the humans?
Yeah. I think the most powerful thing that I realized, and somebody shared it with me, I don't remember who it was, and a lot of this is based on the David Hawkins, the scale of consciousness and frequency and energy work. But basically, we as human beings don't necessarily have control over other people, outer circumstances, or anything like that. But we do have control over our own state of being. And so when we can really make our own state of being, vibrationally speaking, like that we're not stressed, that we're happy, that we're healthy, if we can make that our top priority, then the world around us starts reflecting it back to us, right? So the more you can make your, in a sense, like prioritize yourself, but not just with self-care and buying yourself stuff and stuff, but really like what do you need to do to get yourself into the best vibrational space that you can.
Mm.
Like once I made that shift and really that became my focus, the things that any one of you listening need as a next step, they'll just come to you. The universe will just start supporting you and you'll start finding yourself in a better and better reality.
I fully agree.
Yeah.
And you're also making me think of like how this doesn't just apply to like romantic relationships, but it could be in relationship to your business. Like, are you chasing the dopamine hits in
Yes.
business? And so I'm like, oh my God, this is like multi-layered, and how amazing and incredible the transformations you provide people by just focusing like, how do we unlock your own bliss codes? And then how does that end up showing up in all facets of your life? So this is like a whole life transformation and so healthy for the brain.
Yeah. Especially in the world that we live in today, where so much is geared towards getting us hooked on dopamine because, the whole pharma industry, the whole
Oh yeah.
advertising, they all know, how susceptible our brains are. So,
Well, yeah, on like social media, it's like dopamine,
yes.
dopamine, dopamine, dopamine. And yeah, it's like I mean, I see a lot of big things for you. So thank you so much. This is going to change someone's life today, and just like their total output and perspective of how their brain has been operating. So, like, thank you for sharing this perspective shift.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for
Awesome.
having me.
Okay, my darling, I'll talk to you later.
Bye bye.
Bye.